going on, everybody? This is Darkon25, and this is part 1 of my Morrigan guide. Today's episode will be featuring the ins and outs of mobility. So before we start getting into the actual guide itself, I wanted to throw a little bit of information out at you. See that red line right there? That's what I call the air dash threshold, and if you're not used to an air dashing character, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with that red line. There's a limit to how low in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 that characters can air dash, so you're going to want to be aware of that fact, because a lot of the tech that I'm going to be showing you is we're going to be riding pretty close to that red line. And since Morrigan's ground mobility is severely hampered, you're going to want to be aware of what she's capable of when she takes to the skies. So in one jump, Morrigan is able to get up to 3 soul fists, and you are able to get a 4th one if you mix in flight. Also in a jump, you are only allowed 1 air dash, but you're able to get more with flight. And additionally, the ground dash does not count as an air dash, even though it goes from the ground to the air. And you are allowed only a maximum of 2 shadow blades per 1 jump, and that is a hard cap. And even if you fly cancel, hyper cancel, X factor, you're still only able to up to 2. And you're also going to want to be aware of what you can't fly cancel. And what you can't fly cancel are shell kicks, launchers, and of course hypers. And although you can fly cancel shadow blades, you can't unfly cancel shadow blades because it takes you out of flight mode. So let me start off with a little bit of a disclaimer. If you're a Morrigan player and you've found a lot of success and you are climbing the online rank ladders because you've trained non-stop in training mode since day 1 and you frequent the live streams, you're obviously not going to take from this guide as much as, say, someone who's trying out Morrigan for the first time. But if your Morrigan play looks anything like this, where you're doing a lot of raw ground dashes to shell kicks, raw air dashes to shell kicks, to whatever this is, you're going to want to pay attention, because these things are unsafe and you're just going to find yourself more often than not eating facefuls of plasma. So in my guide, I'm going to be showing you what you're doing that's unsafe, what you can be doing that is, and I'm going to show you how I circumvent Morrigan's lack of ground mobility by using her air mobility to fulfill something really similar to a wave dash. And it's pretty quick and useful too. I'll also be showing you how to control her air movement by using it to confuse opponents with mix-ups that hit both high and low and left and right. And I'll even incorporate some grabs. I'll also be showing you some of the crazy properties of shell kick, and I'll even throw in some fun stuff. So now that that's taken care of, let's get on with the guide.
Oh, wave dash, wave dash. Oh, that's that pad wave dash. That's the pad wave dash. We got 3 buttons and 1 button. Oh.
So almost every character in the game can wave dash, and if you don't know what a wave dash is, it's when you go into a ground dash and you crouch, and it allows you to go into another ground dash almost instantly. And almost every character can do this. I think there's only about 6 that can't, and Morrigan is one of them, and that's because her ground dash takes her up into the air. So by using a combination of jumps, air dashes, and shell kicks, you can achieve an almost tri-jump-like effect and move across the screen pretty quickly. It is a little bit situational because of how varying the height is throughout the whole process, but it does offer you some sliding motions, so you're able to perform grabs off of them. So here's how it works. So if you're a rushdown Morgan like I am, you're going to find yourself in certain instances unable to move in the air. And when that happens, you're going to want to do Morgan's wave dash because it's the closest thing Morgan has to actual ground movement. So to do this, you're going to jump. And again, you want to be aware of that air dash threshold. You're going to pass that line and you're going to go into a downwards air dash. But because of the properties of a downwards air dash, it's going to do an upswing. And you don't want that. So you're going to cancel the upswing with a shell kick. And that shell kick will bring you to the ground. And that's when you're going to be able to do the entire process over again in another jump, another downwards air dash, into another shell kick. And that entire process should bring you across the screen pretty quickly. And it'll allow you to get in on the opponent and start pressuring again. Now, wave dashing is a pretty good source of movement, but the key to a good Morgan is going to rely on how you manage her air mobility, and in order to do that, you're going to want to master flight mode, because it's during the 2 seconds of flight mode is when you're going to have access to a ton of things, including safe lateral movement, unlimited air dashes, mid-air trajectory changes, greater surface coverage of the map, mobile air grabs, and just a general air superiority to most of the characters in the game. But the two most important things you're going to have during the 2 seconds of flight mode, and I can't stress out how important these are, is going to be high ground positioning, and ask any Trish user how important that is. And in my opinion, the most broken thing about Morgan, unfly. And I'll show you why a little bit later. But let's start off with something a little more basic. Now, in my opinion, how far you go as a Morgan player is going to largely depend on how you manage those 2 seconds of flight mode. So you're going to want to get an internal clock going anytime you go into flight mode. You're going to want to count 1,000 to 1,000. 1,000 to 1,000. 1,000 to 1,000. Because during those 2 seconds, as you can see here, you have an unlimited amount of air dashes. If you're able to do 20 air dashes in 2 seconds, you can. But for the most part, you're only going to have to do 2 or 3. So a little bit later in the guide, I'm going to show you, no matter what type of Morgan player you are, whether you spam fireballs, or whether you rush down, or a mix of both, I'm going to show you what you can be doing during those 2 seconds that'll make you a better Morgan player.
Wow, that was one of the most unsafest normal.
Bitch just left her legs open and said, "Come and get it."
Now there seems to be a general misconception of how safe Morgan's air mobility is, and I just wanted to clear this up a little bit. If you play her right, you are always safe. Always. And the reason for that is because of unfly. Not fly canceling. Unfly is what keeps Morgan completely and utterly safe. Say you're watching a match and you see a Morgan caught in an air dash during a freeze screen with a face full of plasma on the way and she ends up blocking. That's because of unfly. Or say she's caught in the same air dash during a free screen of a gimlet and she ends up blocking. That's also unfly. Or let's say you're watching a tournament stream and you see a certain person just going nuts with fireballs, and you see that he's just throwing out a fireball and he's caught in flight mode, but he's still able to block. She's still safe because of unfly. So let me show you how that works and how you can incorporate it into your game to always stay safe. Now this whole process is only 3 steps, but for Morgan players who are so used to doing things their own way, these 3 steps can be a huge change to their game. But in the end, if you want to stay safe, you have to follow these 3 steps. So this first step is probably going to be the hardest to change, simply because I see so many Morrigan players that will do raw air dashes to shell kicks, or raw air dashes to fireballs, or raw air dashes to air heavy. And the simple fact is that stuff is unsafe. And I'm not saying to take it completely out of your game, because I'm going to show you some setups that involve some raw air dashes. But when you base your complete game on one of those setups, there's going to become a point where people are going to start figuring out how to punish that. And you don't want to be stuck in that mentality when they do. So do yourself a favor, and the next time you're thinking of doing an air dash, just go into flight mode beforehand. That way, if you find yourself in a situation where you're about to be punished, you'll have access to unfly. And if you have access to unfly, you'll always be able to block. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. You see that air dash that I just did? That's what I call a raw air dash. And a raw air dash is any air dash that you've done while not in flight mode. The reason why it's so unsafe is because if somebody does a hyper, you have to go into flight mode and then get into unfly before you're able to block. And in most situations, that is impossible to do. And the reason for that is because fly canceling has frames of recovery. It's not very many, but it has them. So that means that you can't just automatically go into flight mode and then go into unfly and start blocking immediately. It doesn't work like that. And it looks like here, it looks to have about 8 frames of recovery. So let's just assume that it does have 8 frames of recovery. That basically means that in this setup, the only punishable frames that I have done so far are the frames from the air dash, the raw air dash, the fireball, and the 8 frames of recovery from fly canceling. Those are the only punishable frames. So if you start off with those punishable frames and you're not punished in that time, that basically means you have 2 entire seconds of flight mode time where you're able to move around the screen and not be punished at all. So at this point, Dr. Strange's opportunity to punish me has pretty much come and gone. So I'm just going to simulate a basic rush down. I'm going to throw out some air dashes. And Dr. Strange is going to see this and think, hey, I'm going to throw out a hyper. I can punish Morrigan because she can't block while she's air dashing. Well, because I have access to unfly, I will always be able to block. So he's going to throw out his hyper, and I'm going to purposely wait until the freeze screen. And remember, any buttons you press during the freeze screen carry over to the next active frame. So I'm going to slowly and calmly input the buttons for unfly and then press back. And on the next active frame, there I'm blocking. And honestly, I could have been in the middle of an attack animation and I still would have been able to block because I had access to unfly. So yeah, give it a shot and try it out, and it will save you.
Here we go. The mix-up. We got mix-up. Wow! Oh, hitboxes. Whoa! We got mix-up.
So I'm going to start off with a few basic mix-ups. These are pretty simple, but a lot of them can be pretty effective. So the first one here is going to be sort of like a tri-jump, and it's going to go, you're going to do the down air dash into a light, into another light, and then you're going to land on the ground and then go into another light. So it's going to be 3 light attacks, and the third one is going to hit low. And again, it's simple, but sometimes you can catch people off guard on that third light. So this next one's going to be pretty similar to the first. We're going to start off again with the downward air dash into a light, into another light, and again into a third light. But this time we're going to be expecting the opponent to block. So we're going to take a step or two and then we're going to go right into a grab. And again, going with the same concepts as the first two, we're going to go into a downwards air dash, into a light, into another light, only this time we're going to fake both the low and the grab and go right into a medium, into a fly cancel, into an overhead. This one can get pretty tricky for the opponent. We're going to air dash down and go right into an overhead. And from there we're going to go into the ground light, which is going to hit low, and then we're going to go directly into a grab. So that's going to be 3 really rapid mix-ups that the opponent's going to have to guess. This one can also be pretty tough for the opponent to sniff out. We're going to go into the downwards air dash, into a medium, but before we touch the ground, we're going to fly cancel the medium and go right into an overhead. So yeah, that'll give you a basic idea of some of the easier mix-ups that Morrigan has to offer. But now let's get on to some of the more dirty stuff.
Oh, almost had the happy birthday. Oh, what? Resets? Justin.
So for this mix-up, we're going to want to be at a certain height and a certain distance from our opponent. Again, you're always going to want to be aware of the air dash threshold, because we're going to be using Morrigan's downward air dash to swoop towards our opponent and aim for this spot right here, just above and behind our opponent. And as you can already tell, it's going to set up some pretty ambiguous stuff. So we're going to go into a jump and we're going to go right into flight mode. And you're going to use this opportunity to get at that specific distance and specific height that I mentioned. And once you get there, you're going to go into a downwards air dash, and that downwards air dash is going to hit this spot just above and behind Akuma. And this next step is important. You want to let the air dash animation finish, and you can tell when it finishes because Morrigan will turn towards our opponent, and once you hit that spot and you turn, you just end it with a shell kick, and it's going to be crazy ambiguous. Now that mix-up is pretty cool, but the magic happens when you start involving fireballs and assists, and I'm going to show you how that works. So instead of just jumping and simply going into flight mode, you're going to jump and you're going to shoot your light fireball. And you want to do the light because it's going to move the slowest, and that's exactly what you want. So you're going to fly cancel the fireball, and then again you're going to use this opportunity to wiggle your way towards that magic spot. You're then going to call your assist and then do your downwards air dash, and that might change depending on how fast or how slow your assist is, but for mine I have disruptor and that's really quick. So you're going to swoop down and you're going to hit the spot, and right as the disruptor hits you're going to cross that plane, and it's going to just be just a crazy mix up. And then all that's left to do is just catch your opponent with the shell kick and continue on with the combo. But if you want something with a little more kick to it, and you have access to an assist that causes force tech rolls, I'm going to show you how you can use this setup to get some pretty ambiguous resets. So the only difference between this setup and the last one is we are going to allow our opponent to hit the ground after Magneto hits him with the disruptor. And what it's going to do is it's going to force the opponent into a tech situation, and he's going to have to guess which way to tech to get to safety. So everything's going to look pretty similar. We're going to start off with a jump, and we're going to throw out a light soul fist. We're going to fly cancel the soul fist. We're going to move to our spot, and then we're going to call the assist, and then do the downwards air dash. But from here on out, we're going to do things a little bit differently. And for this mix-up, we want to be facing towards the right. And you can control which direction Morrigan is facing by either allowing or not allowing the air dash animation to finish. And in this case, we want to be facing the right, so we are not going to allow the animation to finish. So during the downwards animation, we're going to cross the plane and then immediately air dash to the left, and then air dash back to the right, and then back to the left. And that's going to put us in a really great position to cross up Akuma here with shell kick. So again, everything's going to look pretty similar to before. We're going to jump. We're going to throw out the light soul fist. We're going to fly cancel. Get to our spot. Call the assist. And do the downwards air dash. But like the previous one, we want Morgan to be facing a certain direction again. And in this case, we want her to be facing towards the right. And at this current time, she's facing towards the left. So what we're going to do is during the air dash, the downwards air dash, we are going to let the animation finish. So here goes the downwards air dash, and then we're going to stop and let the animation finish. She'll then be facing towards the right, and then we're going to continue on with the tech chase by air dashing towards the left and meeting Akuma with a shell kick. Now if you're looking for something a little more simple and less reliant on assists, then you can't go wrong with just a simple air dash mix-up. And I'm going to show you what it looks like right here, and as you can see, it's pretty ambiguous and it's pretty quick as well. And you're also able to control which side the shell kick lands on by timing your air dashes, and I'm going to show you how that works right now. So this mix-up is pretty easy to do. It doesn't require any assists like the previous ones, and quite frankly it's a lot quicker and possibly a lot more effective. So you're just going to jump in the air, and you're going to want to be pretty close to your opponent. You're then going to go into flight mode, and then you're going to air dash to the other side of your opponent. And depending on how long this air dash is going to determine which side the shell kick lands on. So the longer it is, the better chance it'll land on the right hand side, and the shorter it is, the better chance it'll have on landing on the left hand side. But you're going to want the air dashes to be pretty short and quick. So you're going to air dash to the other side, and then kind of sort of immediately air dash back, and then you're going to immediately shell kick. And it's going to set up a pretty ambiguous shell kick. And let's see if we can guess which side this one's going to land on. I'm going to guess the left hand side because her momentum is carrying her towards the left. And nope, it landed on the right. So as you can see, it gets pretty ambiguous. So this mix-up gets so ambiguous at times. I actually have a clip here where one shell kick lands on both sides of Akuma. Now as you can tell, I'm going to be on the right hand side, but the first hit is going to be landing on the left hand side. And you can tell it lands on the left hand side because Akuma, as it lands, Akuma is facing towards the left and gets nudged towards the right. Right there. But when the second hit lands, Akuma flips the direction he's facing and actually gets nudged towards the left. Right there. Now if this were vanilla, that actually would have been a left-right unblockable. Because Morgan's shell kick was not a true block string, it actually would have forced the opponent to block left on the attack that hits on the left, and then block right on the attack that hits on the right. And if the opponent didn't, it would have opened him up.
Wow, that hit him from the back! I didn't even know that could happen! That's sad. Oh, I think Virgil's gonna die here!
So this section is going to be pretty similar to the last one. It's going to be all about resetting and tech chasing, but this time it's going to be in the air. So we're going to start off this demonstration with just a basic combo. You can do any combo, but keep in mind you're going to want to be able to land a launcher, and a lot of Morgan's 3-loop combos aren't able to land launchers off of them. So just start off with something basic, and then you're going to go into the launcher, go into your ABCs, and then you're going to do Morrigan's heavy Shadow Blade. And the reason why you want to do Morrigan's heavy Shadow Blade is because it's going to pop up the opponent and force him into a tech situation, and it's going to leave us just below him and close enough. So you're going to fly cancel the Shadow Blade, and then you're going to immediately start air dashing back and forth below him. And the air dashes are really just there to keep us close to the opponent. We want to be in his immediate area when he finally does decide to commit to attacking direction. And then when he commits to a direction, all you have to do is just air dash towards him and then grab. So that last example was of a neutral tech chase, and I'm going to show you what an away tech chase is going to look like. So again, you're just going to go into another random combo, then you're going to go into a launcher, and then you're just going to go into a basic ABC, and again you're going to want to do the heavy Shadow Blade, and then you're going to fly cancel the heavy Shadow Blade. So let's say we have a feeling that Akuma is going to be teching towards the left. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to float towards the direction you think the opponent is going to tech. So we're going to float towards the left. And then when he eventually does tech towards the left, we're going to air dash after him and meet him in the air. And in the middle of the air dash, you're simply just going to grab. Now, tech chasing in the air for grabs is great if you want to mix up your opponent every once in a while, but it's not something you're going to do every time you get an opponent doing air. And the reason why is because there are a lot of characters that have really good air normals that will punish you, or in this case they have dive attacks. And I'm going to show you what you can do against characters like Virgil and Dante and Wolverine and Akuma who have diving attacks. So again, for this example, you're just going to want to do a basic combo. And for this example, I'm doing my basic bread and butter. And again, you're going to want to go into the launcher, into the ABCs, and again, this is the heavy Shadow Blade. And then you're going to fly cancel the Shadow Blade. And at this point, we're going to be purposely resetting Virgil. We're not going to continue the combo, and Virgil's going to pop out. And we are going to be forcing Virgil to make a decision. And most players in this position can't help but do a diving attack. So what we're going to do is we are going to be doing a reset, predicting that Virgil's going to be doing the diving attack, and then we're going to open him up off of the reset. So at this point of the mix-up, we're still not sure if Virgil's going to be committing to his Helm Breaker. So after we fly cancel the Shadow Blade, we're going to immediately start floating towards the ground. And you want to get as low to the ground as possible, but remember, you want to be aware of that air dash threshold. We have to be above that line in order to do an air dash, or else the game won't allow us. So we're going to go as low to the ground without passing that line as possible. And at this point, it's a little bit of a waiting game. You're just going to float there until you see Virgil commit to that Helm Breaker. And once you see that the Helm Breaker has started, you're immediately going to air dash downward, and it's going to swoop us below him and to the other side, and we're going to barely dodge the Helm Breaker. And once you get to the other side, you're immediately going to air dash back towards the left. And what that's going to do is it's going to loop us around Virgil. We're barely going to avoid the attack, and it's going to put us in a great position to open him up with a shell kick. And all that's left to do is just finish the combo and then kill the character.
Okay. Okay, that's what I like to see. Let's get it cracked. Let's watch this tech.
So I'm gonna leave you guys with just a couple of clips that I've put together, and this is just to show you guys how you can mix in Morrigan's great air mobility in with just your random everyday tech. So thanks for listening and thanks for watching, and this is part 1 of my Morrigan guide in mobility. I will be releasing more. I still have a lot of tech I haven't shared with you guys yet, so if you want to be the first to get in on that, subscribe to the channel, and thanks again.